Cheers. Welcome to episode 4 of Build It, Brew It, Drink It. This week, or this episode, I want to chase down something that I haven't tried yet, actually. I'm a big fan of Belgian beers. I'm a really big fan of the Dubbel. I like triples too, but I'm a bit of a lightweight, so getting into that 7-8% mark makes a beer a little less approachable for me. Quads, really like a quad, but then we're talking very often in the 9 to 12% range. I can have one of those a month if I'm lucky. Doubles, on the other hand, in the 6 to 7.5 range, much more approachable. They're traditionally very malt forward, malty with character of dried fruit and raisin and things like that. But I live in Alberta, and this is, working with Red Shed, who doesn't do some of the really heavily experimental and heavily modified malts. I'd really like to do an Alberta Dubbel. An Alberta Dubbel using great Alberta-based grains, some of the Red Shed specialty malts, like their Rocky Mountain malt, which is a Vienna, or similar to a Vienna malt. And then, using some of the more traditional Belgian adjuncts, things like candy sugar, to bring the ABV up and bring that body with it. So what I'd like to do this episode is build a Dubbel. Because it's Alberta, it's going to be the Alberta Dubbel. I think that's the plan for this episode. So let me fire up Beersmith here. And let's get this beer on the way. Now, what I'd really like to do is build. Okay, so two things have happened. In brewing our London Brown, we ran into a little trouble on the 5-gallon because my equipment setup wasn't quite tuned. I changed my mash tun. We kind of overshot our gravity by like a lot. So I've tried to tune Beersmith for my 10-gallon. Let's build it as a 10-gallon recipe this time. The percentages are really what's key. The IBUs are what's key. So you should be able to build a 5-gallon batch for yourself by scaling basically everything in half based on what we come up with in this recipe. So I'm going to pull up our 5-gallon template. And we're going to start here, but we're going to switch it immediately to my 10-gallon updated 10-gallon pilot system. And we are going to call this Alberta Dubbel. That's where we're going on this guy. Now, this is basically going to be a 40-liter batch that will split into 2 fermenters again. We're actually going to do this one with 2 different yeasts, too. Lance is going to ferment his with one, and I'll ferment with another. And then we can compare the two to see which yeast works better and which gets us closer to the sort of a traditional Belgian feel, considering we're doing things a little bit differently with grain. So as always, here's my water. I'm going to up that to, I'm just going to make it 45 liters so that I don't forget we're doing a 10-gallon batch here. Camden, it's generally a tablet per gallon. I find that's just too much. I usually do 5 tablets in the 10-gallon, and I have not had any problem with that. So we're going to just put 5 tablets into that full 15.5 gallons plus of water that we put into the hot liquor tank to heat. Firm cap will be 4 drops, not 2. I don't know if you've had a chance to see the second brew session already, or the first brew session. If you haven't, I'll make sure there's links below to it. But firm cap makes a huge difference. The other thing that was really interesting was putting in our whirl flock at the end of the boil with like 2 minutes to go. Not 5, not 10, not 15, but 2. The coagulation of proteins has resulted in the most incredible clarity in the fermenter I've ever seen. Just stunning. Rolled around beautifully during fermentation, but it wasn't hazy. It was there were chunks of stuff floating around, and they trapped the hops, and it really did a great job. I'm going to be kegging it probably tomorrow, and that's now a week and a half old. You'll see this probably in a couple of weeks after we've had a chance to drink it. But the fermentation went so well. Looks great. I know Lance has already racked his into secondary just to let it settle a little bit. I'm going straight into the keg. So Royal Flock, really close to the end of the boil, was a huge improvement over doing it at 15 minutes, and certainly night and day compared to not doing it at all. So Royal Flock is in there. Let's start talking grain. Now, a traditional double is generally Pilsen or pale malt. The Bentley base grain that we're working with, it's so flavorful and it's got so much to offer. I'm quite happy using Bentley as the base grain in this instead of a pale. It has a little bit of that breadiness, that biscuitiness that comes from sometimes higher Kilden malts. But in this recipe, because this is our Alberta double, we're going to use the Bentley again. I'm just going to put in default amounts for the moment. I need to have something a little richer and a little darker. For that, I'm going to go in this beer. The darkness of the beer in a double runs from about, I think, 11 to 17 or 12 to 18 SRM, which means that it's a darker, closer to a brown ale color. So I'm going to use, I don't want to get into the chocolates. They're just too dark, and they should be malt forward, not chocolate forward. So I want to make sure we hold on to that malt flavor. In order to do that, I'm going to go with the Red Shed Rocky Mountain, which is basically a Vienna. A double shouldn't have crystal malts in it. It should have sort of richer, closer to roast than crystal. So we're going to go with the Rocky Mountain malt. It's a 6.5 SRM. Again, I'm just going to put in a default amount. Most importantly, we need to add fermentables. Because it's a high alcohol, but it's it's a low color beer. But most of that alcohol comes from adjuncts, and in particular, Belgians use candy sugar. So we're gonna add. I wanted to do this with something like an amber, but I don't have any amber. I do have dark candy sugar, so I've got a couple pounds of that. So I'm gonna add the candy sugar for this. Again, we're keeping the grain all Alberta, but the rest of it's gonna be very Belgian. So now we need a hop. This is a very lightly hopped beer, generally. The traditional hops, an older style of hop. I have Hallertau Blanc, which is an 8.8% alpha acid bittering hop, and I think the Hallertau Blanc will do a really good job of getting us the bitterness and completely getting out of the way, because we only need just enough bitterness to offset that sweetness that we're going to get from a big mash on this grain. We don't want hop aromas. We barely want hop flavors. We literally want it there to preserve the beer, and we want it there to simply round out the sugar so that the sugar is not over the top. We don't want it to be cloyingly sweet. We want it to be slightly sweet, but we want that roast or dark dried fruit bitter or dried fruit sweetness, raisin, plum, dark skinned fruits. That's the feel, and we'll get that from the grain. More importantly, we'll get that from our yeasts. That's where the temperature and the control of our fermentation is going to be important on this beer. 72 degrees, 73 degrees for a fermentation temperature with most Belgian yeasts is going to give you lots and lots of ester production in that skinned fruit, dried fruit kind of flavors. We've got both our Dens from Y Yeast and their 1388 Belgian Abbey style yeast. We're going to do one of each, and as I said, we'll try them and we'll see what the differences are. Be very interesting to see how the results. So I'm going to use the Hallertau Blanc. I think it's a great option for this. That'll get us into the neighborhood. Okay, so now we can start working on some numbers. Again, this setup for we're going to set it up as a Belgian double. I mean, it just doesn't make sense not to. So here's a Belgian double. It's category 26B in the 2015 BJCP guidelines. A lot of people are kind of on the fence about whether or not those guidelines are right. And I'm not one to pick a side on this because as a brewer, I haven't brewed it. As a drinker, I like them all. And so, does the style matter? Nah. In this case, I just want to build a beer that's sort of inspired and has some of the hallmarks of. I like Belgian beers. I like, the estery yeasts that come out of Belgium. I really like the malt forward profile. I like the restrained hops. I like the mouthfeel. I like the drinkability of them. Even though they can be a little over the top for some people, certainly for a palate that's used to lagers and really light, dry side, light IPA, light IPAs or things like that. A Belgian is a complete twist. But if you've ever sat down and had a Chimay Blue or a La Trappe or a Trappist Roquefort, they're an amazing experience. And to have a keg of that and be able to share growlers of that or howlers of that with friends is something that has a lot of appeal. So I'm not afraid to do that. So that's what we're going to do. So Hallertau Blanc is in there. Let's get to building this recipe. Now, typical gravity on something like this, 106.2 to 107.5, that's that 6 to 7.5% range. 15 to 25 IBUs. Again, we're not looking for massive bitterness. It's just there to balance. Out of the box, 10 to 17 SRM, according to the guidelines. That's a fairly light beer. It's like a dark golden color. I'm okay if we go over and it gets a little darker. I don't mind that as long as the flavors work. Who am I to care? Just a little more caramel and richness in there. So, I have, in terms of candy sugar, I have 2 pounds. That's about what I'm going to work with. You could add up to 20% to the grist, but that just makes booze, and I don't want to get stuck on the booze. 900 grams is what 2 pounds works out to, just shy of a kilogram. So that's what that's going to be. Rocky Mountain malt. Now, this is a Vienna. I don't want to go over the top. If we're cautious and we work the grain well, we'll get a moderate head that dies back. There's a lot of booze in this. We want it to be heady and rocky if we can. We're going to let the yeast do some of that for us. We're going to let the proteins come out through the fermentation. We're going to let some of that break down. But at the end of the day, we're looking for something that's got the flavors we want. And again, like I said, every beer is a work in progress. The first time you brew it, you're going to change something. Particularly when we're creating recipes on the fly. We're not cloning something that exists. We're not repeating something. This is an out of our head, right out of the brain, brand new beer. So let's go with the feel. We drink it, and then we decide what we would change, and we share that with you in the third episode of each beer. That's the whole point. We want to be creative. We want to be experimental in the way we look at our beer, and this is a great way to do it. So, candy sugar, we've got our 2 pounds of candy sugar in there. Our Rocky Mountain malt is a 6.5 SRM. My concern is we are already with these numbers like pinned at 22.6. That's pretty dang dark already. So we're going to have to figure out how to make the sugar show up without getting too crazy dark beyond this. In terms of our batch size, that's the fermenter side. We want 40 liters into the fermenter. That's 2 5-gallon batches. That's not going to change. My pre-boil volume is about 47 liters. That means pre-boil, we're about 15 gallons. So that's where we're going to start. And we're going to boil off, certainly a gallon and change, just to get us down to the fermenter. So 40 liters is what we're shooting for. So Bentley is our base grain. We need to get that alcohol in there. So let's add 5 kilograms. See how high that brings us on this. Oh, okay. We're not even on the radar yet. Let's go 7. 7 kilograms. That's a lot of grain. We're already at 15 pounds of grain. Well, the needle's moving. That's a good thing. We're 105.7. Oh, let's make sure we've got our mash intentions set here. So we're going to have a batch sparge. Let's go full body. Full body, medium body, full body, medium body. Let's go medium body. It'll be a little easier drinking if it's not so heavy. Okay, so that dropped the numbers. So we got to add more. Let's go 7.5. 7.5. What does 7.5 get? Well, it gets us a little closer. We're in the ABV range now. Color's definitely gone up a bit still. We need more. Okay, let's get that Rocky Mountain malt in the game. Oh, wait. What? Hold on. Wait, what? Hey, what? Why do I have 2-row? And Bentley. I shouldn't have 2-row and Bentley. I should have Bentley, Rocky Mountain, and that's it. So this 2-row's got to go. That's messed up. Whoops. Let's get rid of that. No, 9. Okay, 2-row Bentley. 7.5. That's where we were starting. Okay. And then Rocky Mountain malt. We need more. I also want more flavor of the Rocky Mountain. So let's go at least to 1.5. Okay, that gets us into the ABV range, but we're still not there in the gravity range. I think it's because of that candy sugar. If I take that candy sugar down to like 750, that'll let me add more of our Vienna. There we go. Look at that. That helps us bring it up. And it did bring down, we're down to 21.7 SRM from 24. I'd like more. We're asking a lot of that Vienna in terms of flavor. And I don't know if it'll be able to do it. It will certainly do it better than just the Bentley will. I guess here's the question. Is it better for us to go a little extra dark to get that? Let's go back to 0.9. How far does that push us? You know what? I'm okay with that. Let's go back to the full 2 pounds. It makes it a little dark. Okay, so be it. Let's go with it. And part of the reason is because, I could talk. I want to keep the grain for this, truly local. And you can work with your maltsters, whoever they are close to you. Or, absolutely you can go out and you can buy Pilsner to replace the Bentley. You can go get a Munich or something to replace that Vienna. I'm doing this because this is an Alberta double, and that's the grain that I want to go with. But again, you've got options, you've got choices. Talk to your local homebrew shop. If they know of local maltsters, there are certainly opportunities for you to find that. Anywhere in Western Canada, hey, pick up the phone, give Red Shed Malting a call at redshedmalting.com, and they'll just set you up with what you want. That's that simple. So, all right, last up, let's make sure we get the hopping right, because the hops are totally out to lunch. I'm cool with it being darker. For this Ale Beerda double. Oh, excuse me. I'm totally fine with it being a little dark, but we still need to hop it. We put our Hallertau Blanc in there. I've got an ounce of that, I know, ready to go. So we're going to put that ounce in. And this is 1 ounce of hops in a 10-gallon batch. We're talking light hop character, if any. It shouldn't even be noticeable. The beer should be dominated by malt and esters from the fermentation. That's really where this is at. So this is going to be sort of in the middle ground from an ABV perspective. It's going to be super malt forward, probably really delicious. I hope it's really delicious. That's kind of the whole point of doing this. Now, in terms of yeasts, you really can't get Belgian feel out of a beer that isn't fermented with Belgian strains of yeast. So, in order to achieve that, we've gone with 2 strains. Because we're doing separate fermentations, Lance will be fermenting his, and I'll be fermenting mine separately. I picked up 2 different strains. So let's talk about those strains of yeast. In particular, I grabbed a couple of Y yeast strains. So we have on one hand the Belgian Strong Ale 1388. Low flocculation, which means that it's going to need a little more time and it'll probably need some crash, and we're definitely going to have to make sure we get some finings in there. 74 to 78% attenuation, temperature fermentation range of 64 to 80. So the warmer you ferment with 1388, the more sort of craziness and phenolics and esters will come out of it. And you'll get some really rich flavors and subtle notes of spice and character that come from that. 1388 does, and as a result, I may end up fermenting with the 1388 and may give Lance the Ardennes. This particular yeast has a habit of stalling, and I have used 1388 before. I like 1388, and it stalls its ass out at 103.5. Around there, you'll get 3 days of great fermentation. It'll be really active, super bubbly, and then it'll just coast, and then just stop. The yeast is fine. It's almost like it just needs a break for a day or two. So you can pop it with a little bit of yeast nutrient, drop your aerator stone in there, get it aerated up nice and busy, get some more oxygen in there, and it will continue to ferment. This particular yeast, I've seen it take easily 14 days to finish. The bulk of fermentation gets done quickly, and then it just sort of slow chews through. But it will, and it will settle out, and with crashing it will settle nicely. But it is a really flavorful yeast. It's really, really nice. The other option is this Belgian Ardennes, the 3522 strain. Super versatile, good attenuation, phenomenally flocculent. It will just crash out and drop to the bottom. You get a beautiful layer of yeast. You don't get that with 1388. 1388 it will slowly settle out. Really does require the fining and the crash. 3522 flocks like a monster. It's awesome. It's a mother flocker. Heard it here first. Probably not. 65 to 76 degree temperature range. Again, the higher temperatures produce much more ester character, not always desirable. So, I mean, you want to keep it in the midline there. 68, 69, 70, 71 would be fine. Up to 12 ABV again. So these are both going to handle the 7% ABV of this beer, no problem. But the Ardennes gives you some more fruit character, lighter, more delicate, and then some spicy notes, but they're very well balanced. It's a nice yeast. We've seen this yeast used in a few other beers, and I know a couple of the commercial breweries around Edmonton have used it recently. I think Ribstone uses it in one of their. Not positive. Don't hold me to it. I think they use it in Great White Combine, but don't hold me to that. So again, a yeast that's versatile and flocculates well, attenuates well. I think it's going to be a great option. So we've got those two ready to go, 1388 and the 3522. Both of those available for Brew Day, and an all Alberta grain beer. I think Alberta Dubbel is going to be an incredibly enjoyable, very drinkable beer. Really looking forward to putting this one out there. That's it. That's Alberta Dubbel. That's the beer we're going to make in just a few days. I'm excited to get this one onto the kettle because I really enjoy this style of big malt, lots of fruit, dark, rich, lovely beers. And it'll be great to have a base recipe that I can start working from, changing up little things, adding, taking away. Maybe it's the candy sugar. Maybe I need to bump that back to the amber. Maybe I need to augment the grains with another specialty. Maybe I do need more of sort of the middle and darker grains to bring up that flavor and to bring up the body or whatever it happens to be. But again, it's a starting point. Building recipes, look for the flavors you want, build the profile that you're looking for. Use a yeast that makes sense for the style, because the yeast imparts such a huge amount to the finished product, particularly with ales. They really do. They are frankly the bread and butter. You ferment this with a Belgian yeast, it's going to taste very one way. You ferment this with, California Common or Chico or one of the other sort of popular American yeasts, you are going to see a completely different beer in the end result. So that flavor profile is really very much a combination of the yeasts and the grain bill that you're putting together, as well as any adjuncts, obviously. We're keeping this simple, no extra additions. It's just the candy sugar, it's just the grain, and we're going to see what it comes out like. If we get a true Belgian feel, if it feels like a double, then we'll have been successful, and we'll have a great starting point for future, Alberta-based, local-grown doubles. Which I think would be a fantastic thing. Cheers. Have a great week. Look forward to sharing Brew Day on this beer with you. If you haven't seen any of the other videos, we'll make sure that those are linked down in the description below. Hit the subscribe button if you're new. Hit that notify button if you want to be notified when new beers are being made or tasted, or indeed anything else that the Rysk Brewing channel is doing. Big thanks to Red Shed Malting, again, for their sponsorship of this series, and their interest and their excitement and their passion for beer and for growing, and even more so for being a part of the Alberta agriculture community that is so lovingly supporting the craft beer movement in this country and Canada, and certainly in the US too. Thanks again. We'll see you very, very soon. Cheers. Hey folks, just a quick throwback. I realized that there was something missing from the malt bill on this. We didn't have a really dark malt. Because we were using that dark candy sugar that I had in inventory instead of an amber, we were getting to the SRM that I wanted, the darkness, but we were missing some flavor. And for that flavor, I was going to run to the amber malt to pull in some of that sort of spicy nuttiness that it can provide and some of the toffee flavors. Pardon me. So I'm going to add as well. I've just gone back. Camera was done. The show was over. You're still here. I'm still here. Now let's talk about it. I'm going to get some amber malt in here. I'm going to put just a small amount, only about 750 grams. It does, again, it bumps our color up farther than I'd like. Now I think I could technically bring that candy sugar back down to 750 grams. And keeps us under that 24 SRM, but it does bring up that ABV to 7% like we were originally looking at, and gets us right into the gravity line that we want. It's interesting, gravity and ABV are not necessarily directly connected. Your gravity can go up or down without impacting your ABV, depending on where the sugars are coming from. It's an interesting relationship. I don't want to go into the math of it because, frankly, I would look stupid because I'm terrible at math. It's that simple. So we've popped the amber in there. We've dropped the candy sugar down a little bit. We will be sharing the recipe on beersmithrecipes.com a little later on. Watch for that. And I think this is going to work. I think we've got our amber in there now. Not too much, just 6-7% of our grist, but it'll give it just that little touch of difference. Thanks for joining me. See you when we brew.